We'll start on time. I'd like to call this meeting to order and state that this meeting is being held in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231. It was properly noticed. It has been posted and certified by the clerk. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hopatcong.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Schindler.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
And Mayor Francis.
Here. Please join me with the flag salute. Pledge allegiance.
The flag.
To the flag.
United States of America. And to the republic.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. All right. At this point, we're going to have the public hearing for application of the 2020 USDA Section 533 Housing Preservation Grant, Resolution 2020-82, approval of the grant. So, Valerie, would you make sure we do this right?
Okay, we just need to open to the public.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Well, you know
Aye.
what?
Aye.
Now that we're doing video meetings, I don't know that we should do all in favor. I think instead of that, Valerie, we're going to do a roll call on everything, just for the record.
Okay, I'm not set up for that right at this meeting, but I will do that in further meetings. I think everything else we do for the most part is going to be roll call anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll set that up for the
moving
next
forward.
meeting for sure.
We're learning as we go with this technology, you know, so I think moving forward, let's make sure everything is a roll call. Just for the
Okay.
record.
All right.
So that motion was passed by voice. Does anyone object? Okay, so that's approved. So let's proceed if there's any public with any questions about the housing preservation grant.
Again, I'd ask all the public that if they want to make a comment, please go to your resource button and hit the hand. And that way we'll know you want to make a motion, make a comment. If not, we'll move on. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, let's give that a little time.
Yep.
All right, that's
Mayor, at this time, I don't see any indications from the public.
okay.
I'll move to bring it back, Mayor. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're
Okay,
back.
now I need a motion. I'm sorry, Mike. I need a
We need
motion and
now-
a second for the resolution.
Correct.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hopatcong.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Roberts.
Yes.
Mr. Schindler.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Great, now we can get our HUD grant, I hope.
Yes, yes.
There's no proclamations. And let's do committee reports. We'll start with Dawn.
Yes, Mayor. We are really moving food out the last couple of weeks. The numbers have climbed a little bit only because there's no problems with the seniors. The seniors are pretty well taken care of unless they didn't stick their hand up. But there's more food pantries popping up. We're still here. So the seniors are well taken care of. The problem that I'm seeing is that the unemployment is such a mess. People are either still waiting for a check or they've gotten a partial check and they're waiting on arrears from the state. So we're going to continue to help those folks that are just living very, very low on the pay scale. We have our freezer, which works beautifully. Thank you to the donor that gave that to us. You know who you are. We are taking in more frozen foods, things like hamburgers and chicken nuggets and turkey sausage and breakfast sausage. things that we could freeze and have a longer shelf life on and get more protein out to these families that have the little kids. We're actually waiting for a delivery right now, so if I get distracted, I may have to run and open up the back door, so I'll apologize in advance. We also have, they're getting hot meals now. The deli that's next door to the community center, he's been making homemade dishes, homemade foods and soups that is freezable. And we can put that in every box that we give out, and all the person has to do is just warm it up. And so more Foursquare meals. So we're doing very well, in addition to other pantries. Right now, what's going on right now, if people want to get in their car, they're able to get in their car and go over. Table of Hope, they are giving out food bags and a car convoy over at Camp Jefferson, and that's going on right now until 12:30. So if anyone would like to avail themselves of that opportunity as well, Table of Hope is a great organization, and they've been working really hard for the last couple of months as well. So I think we're all doing pretty well, just pitching in together and focusing on the common goal to make sure that people get what they need. So thank you, Mayor, and you be well.
Thank you, Don. Brad?
Mayor, I'd just like to follow up on Don there. I'd like to thank the Hopatcong Deli right beside the Wellness Center, and in particular Dan for his assistance on anything that, on all the things that he's doing to help Don out as well. Just want to also mention that. Just as a update, everybody seems to be doing good on practicing the social distancing, because it seems like the numbers are starting to slow here in Hopatcong and in the county. Just the latest update as of yesterday, we inched up to the 100 mark for those with COVID cases here in Hopatcong. On the county, we're at 994. So hopefully we're seeing the downtrend at this point in time. That's all I got.
Thank you. Rich?
I just want to thank all the EMS, the fire, the police officers for their work being on the front line and dealing with the public. I also want to give a shout out again to the doctors and nurses in town. Thank you for putting your life on the line when you're dealing with this COVID-19. We very much appreciate it. That's all I have.
Thank you. John?
I don't have any direct committee reports. None of the committees have met. However, I do have some updates on different events. First of all, I will start with Municipal Alliance. Municipal Alliance hasn't had the ability to meet, and everything that we do is on hold until further notice, from depending on how the social distancing orders change, which they seem to change daily. So Municipal Alliance, everything is on hold. Have nothing from Open Space. From some of the events related to the Environmental Commission, and some of these events are not necessarily directly related to the Environmental Commission, but in speaking to some of those members, a lot of those members are involved in other organizations, and kind of gave me an update of some other things that I'd like to pass on. We do have a couple of Environmental Commission members that are still working on Sustainable Jersey, but again, that's changing all the time. The Fall for Our Town event that we had last year for the first time, and it was a great success. That's on hold right now because the Willis Scantlebury is the lead volunteer on that, and it's very difficult to get any vendors or any other businesses like that to commit at this point. So it's a distinct possibility that we wind up not having that this year. That's normally done in September. The free tree giveaway, which was supposed to be for May, the state pushed it back to June. And at this point, they still haven't released any information as to whether or not they're going to release the trees. They have the trees in refrigeration storage, but that's another event that's probably going to wind up being canceled. The Shade Tree Commission committee that we were looking to do, we're still looking for some answers regarding the municipality from the Shade Tree Commission. So that's on hold. The Trails Committee, we were supposed to have a National Trails Day hike on June 6th. That's on hold right now, possibly to be canceled. The poster contest definitely been canceled. From the community garden, this is not directly from the Environmental Commission, but one of our members is a lead in the community garden. They started working on the plots. They are practicing social distancing measures. They do have a few plots open, so if anyone is interested, I don't have a contact information in front of me, but if anyone is interested, they can reach out to me and I will get them in contact with the people they need to. Also, the Women's Club, they're supposed to have a Zoom social gathering today, but they did inform me that their fashion show is now canceled. The Lake Hopatcong Foundation have canceled their gala. However, they do have an online auction. They have a company called GiftSmart that is doing an online auction for them. So that's interesting. And the Hopatcong Museum obviously is closed because there's no way to do social distancing. There are small rooms in that building. From the Recreation Commission, our street hockey program for the spring is officially completely canceled at this point. Summer recreation program is not canceled. We're still waiting for, depends on what the governor releases, whether or not the facilities can be used in mid-June and later. So we don't have an answer on that. We did put registrations on hold simply so we didn't have a lot of refunds to issue. And regarding refunds, we are working on a process to refund everybody as far as the street hockey program. The Easter egg hunt and Hopatcong days, we've had some conversation, some of the members, with the possibility of doing something later in the year, perhaps September, if we're not able to do it in July, which at this point is a real possibility. Miss Hopatcong days, Miss Hopatcong pageant, no decision has been made, and the Memorial Day parade at this point has been canceled. So those are the updates I know about. As I find out more information on anything, I will certainly pass it on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ryan?
There's not really much to report from my committees. The Chamber of Commerce meeting is this Friday, and next week is the Solid Waste Committee meeting. Both of those will be virtual meetings. What I would like to say, separate from the committee reports, is I'd like to ask our public. I live on a dead-end street. There's 7 houses. We all know each other. In this time when we're all stuck at home and we're all basically turned into hermits, those of us that can't go to work, I am going to work. It's important to check on your neighbors. Please make that phone call, reach out, talk to your neighbors, make sure everybody's okay. There are people out there that need stuff that can't really talk to people. It would be a tragedy if we came out of this and everybody came out of their house, a few months down the line and found out that, neighbors were struggling. Please reach out to all of your neighbors and make sure everybody's okay. That's all I got.
Thank you. Jennifer, you're up.
All right. I actually have a meeting with the superintendent at 3 o'clock today. I'm sure everybody knows there is no school for the rest of the year. Well, not no school. There's no in-person school. There's distance learning through the end of the school year. I wanted to point out that Alex McLean is running a drive-through food bank tomorrow, May 7th at Hopatcong High School from 10 to 1. If anybody wants to make donations, I think it's beginning at 9 a.m. And there's someplace at Quick Check and at the high school main entrance that he has drop boxes for anybody in need. I also wanted to give a big shout out to PAC 88 for really spreading some joy and thanking our first responders. Every den went out on Sunday using social distancing, one at a time, and they decorated the police department, fire departments 2, 3, and 4, as well as the ambulance squad, thanking them for their service and putting their lives at risk for us. So thank you very much to PAC 88. That's all.
Thank you. Ron, you have an administrative report?
Yeah, just real quick, Michael, thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to take a moment for all of us to have our thoughts and prayers with our tax collector, Patty. She lost her father this week. So if everybody could put her and their thoughts, I'd really appreciate it. And I know she would too. I guess the good news is that the strainer that we're using over at what we used to call Mount Rusky is working very well. DP guys are very focused on taking all that bad dirt and making it good and useful stuff that we can use. That's working very well. I wanted to thank my guys in DPW every day. They're working very hard to keep things moving. And most importantly, they've done a very good job of starting the recycling pickups for the neighborhoods. That's working very well. They're very busy. We've got a lot going on, and we hope to continue that through the 1st of June so that we can get our arms around and get the recycling center back up and running. But in the short term of it all, I'm very pleased to say that we are doing very well at picking up, and the residents have been very good about placing stuff at the edge of their driveways and indicating to us what needs to be picked up. So that's going on very well. And that's about all I got right now, boss.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting for public comment. But before I do, I want to clarify some stuff up with the Zoom meetings and electronic. First, I'll apologize to any public that thinks they were either cut off or excluded. We certainly would never want that to happen. But in order to bring some order to this, when a person wishes to participate with the public comment, I want the speaker to state their name and their residential address and speak to the Borough Council directly. The council should be addressed as a collective body and not as an individual, and not to the individual members. Questions from speakers, if any, should be directed to me, the mayor. Questions will be addressed after the close of public comment period at the discretion of the governing body. Council members who want to ask the speaker a question should direct your question through the mayor. In order to respect the speaker's time, council members should not engage in dialogue or debate with the speaker. The council can discuss the public comment after closing to the public. This will assure that your 5 minutes is your 5 minutes. And so hopefully people will understand that. And it's just one way with the electronic methodology we're using is to make sure everybody gets their fair chance and gets to complete their project. I will run the timer, and when it gets to 4.5 minutes, I'll let you know that you're reaching the end of the 5 minutes. Thank you, and I'll entertain a motion now.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Welcome, public. Ron, you take it from here by making sure everybody is unmuted when they're supposed to be.
You got it, Mayor. Again, to the public, anybody wants to make a comment, please go to your actions button and hit the hand, and we'll know that you're ready to want to make a comment.
Give it some time, because sometimes it's computers don't always cooperate with you. At least not with me.
Mine never does.
Yeah.
Mine too, sometimes.
I was going to say, John, you're on for the second time. That's a good thing.
Yeah. You
No,
got a
this
good
is the
track
third.
record.
Hearing none?
Don't see
I'll
any,
make
Mike.
a motion to bring it back.
I'll second that.
I won't call yet, just to make sure. Give it another few seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we're back. I hope everybody understands that we're really trying to give everybody a fair chance. And the new policy, by the way, what I just read, I believe I'm going to ask Valerie to put on the agendas as we move forward, so everybody understands it. All right. Approval of minutes for the meeting of April 15th, 2020.
I'll move them, Mayor. As written.
Second. Second.
Valerie, you want to call the roll on this?
Mr. Hoppercamp,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Approval of the consent agenda? I mean, no, we've got a build list,
Bill
right?
list.
Go Lewis.
Let's do the build list.
Does anyone need anything removed or discussed? Not hearing or seeing any, Mayor, I will move the bill list in its entirety.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoppercamp,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Valerie, we have anything on the consent agenda?
We do have one report.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So made.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoppercamp,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
And we don't have any ordinances listed. We'll go to resolutions. Resolution 2020-80, authorizing the tax collector to process third quarter estimated tax bills due August 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoppercamp,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-81, budget to be read by title.
I don't have this on my agenda.
It was added afterwards when we added the adoption of the budget. This
Okay.
goes along with the adoption of the budget.
Got
This
it.
resolution just states that we've done everything that we're supposed to do between the introduction and the adoption. If we did not, we'd have to read the whole budget in to the record, but this allows us just to do it by title.
Got it. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoppercamp,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
I have a question. This is just the introduction. This is not the passage.
No, this is the adoption.
So there's no public comment about the budget?
We have to have
This
hearings.
This
you'd like me to-
resolution only allows us to do this by, this is not the adoption of the budget. This is just a resolution.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to new business. Before we get to the public hearing on the budget, which will allow public comment, there's a couple of things I want to put under new business for the council consideration. And I think the most important one, if not, is I want to really try to open Borough Hall to the public, of course, with limits and with strict controls. I think what we do, quite frankly, is essential to the public. I've been in the post office, I see what they do. I've been in the stores, I see what they do. So I'd like to ask Ron and the administration and the employees for input on what they think this should look like. But I really think we should unparalyze, if you will, some of the things that we're doing. And so, for example, you have to wear a mask, and it's very controlled, with a limited amount of people in. And I would ask Ron to look at them details and work on this to see if we can do that sooner than later.
I think that's a good idea.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
Yeah, Mike, I think that's a great idea. And it'd be good, Ron, if you could put something together for us.
We met this morning early with my DPW crew, trying to think about the next steps to this and getting ahead of it. We've already installed the employee protection barriers in construction and tax assessing. I I invite all of you to go take a look at that. Steve Million, I have to give a great shout out, did a very good job with that. It's very well done. We looked at flows today about going in one door and out the other and maintaining social distances, eliminating the number of people in the building, and so forth. And all our employees I met with yesterday are all in favor. Everybody's ready to get back to normal, whatever that looks like right now. And we got a lot of support internally to do that. But I will put that plan together by ends week.
All right, and what I'll do is when we think we have that, Ron, I will share that. I will share that plan with the council and make sure everybody understands what we're doing and when we think we're going to do it and how we're going to control the situation. But I think it's important to consider. The other issue is I've been talking with the county about the nutrition program for seniors, and probably in the not too distant future, within the next month or two, because of the size of our building, I believe we can, with social distancing, can manage about 18 people upstairs and 10 people downstairs, and no more than that. But should we do that, there's some logistical issues we have to address, which is disinfecting the building. So if we do the nutrition program with the county, I believe that will be the only activity allowed in the senior center for reasons of health and disinfection until this is all over. Of course, this is all as we're in the emergency, but I think our seniors have lost so much. And if the county is willing to do this, what they're talking about, I believe it's just a little bit, not a lot, but it's a little bit for our seniors to make up for, they lost everything. The senior picnic doesn't look like it's a go. Any of the bus trips, any of the social events, that's all stopped. So if the county wants to continue the nutrition program, we'll manage the building accordingly.
Mike, I'd just like to add on that I'd like to do whatever we can to add that capacity, and we can talk offline at some point, see if there's any other possible way we can add capacity, because they normally have a crowd, a group, pretty large group there that far exceeds the 28 possibilities, but that's something that we can just explore possibly.
Well, we did a lot of measurements. We did a lot of measurements, and that's pretty much the number.
Sure.
28 is better than 0.
Yeah.
Right. And with weather getting better, you might want to consider the pavilion as well.
Well, that's one step at a time. We have to, like I said earlier, we have to unparalyze this a little bit at a time. Take our time. And if something doesn't look right, we just stop. Put your foot on the brakes. Just let's see where we're going with this. Start very controlled. Start very slow. So I think this is one start.
Mayor, I would like to comment on that. I also agree that I think this would be a very good thing. It would certainly be a little bit of relief from the staff of the senior center, because some of them are out on a daily basis delivering meals, picking up necessary medications that some of the seniors absolutely need but are not able to get them. And also on a social level, like you said, the seniors are hit very hard, especially the ones that are alone and perhaps not as mobile as the rest of us. So I know from speaking to Kathy that the level of depression is on the rise, and so this would be a good thing in many aspects. And there's certainly a lot of them that depend on that food. So yeah. I think, again, we'll have to work things out as we go, but I think that's a great idea as well.
So we'll keep everybody apprised of that as we move forward, but that's my 2 cents worth under new business. So now we're going to move to the public hearing and adoption of the 2020 municipal budget. So you're going to have to guide me through this, Valerie, so I do it the correct way.
Okay, we need to open to the public.
I'll make a motion to open to the public.
Second.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're open to the public for questions on the municipal budget, and we have Paul Lurch here.
Yes, Mayor, I'm here, and Ralph Pacone from the office is here too. Mayor, can I just make a comment quickly?
Sure.
You let me know. What we've done in the past is when we open to the public, we went through our brief slide presentation to try to just give an overview of the 2020 budget. And then what we can do at that point as we go through this, certainly if mayor and council has any questions, we could stop in the middle of it. But I think for the general public, especially the way we're doing it, we should wait till the very end, and then we can address any specific questions that either Lorraine doesn't want to or can't answer. 1 second, I just lost you guys there. Okay. And then we can go through it in that process.
Sure.
Okay. Lorraine or Ralph, were you going to put the slide up?
Yeah, Lorraine's going to do that.
I have it.
Okay. And so, Mayor, just a couple of overview comments. What's going to happen is that Ralph is going to go through the slide presentation. I'll certainly be here. He'll do that. But just from a global perspective, and what I've seen, obviously, this year dealing with many other communities, as we know, the real issue, obviously, here is the pandemic, COVID-19, and what it's doing to municipalities and their budgets, and the stress that it's putting on. I think that, you have to look at this from a global perspective. And what I mean by that, when I say that, is I look at your balance sheet and I look at your financial statement and how strong you are. Not every town is obviously, they're not all the same. Some communities do not have the cash reserves that you have. And when I say that, I'm really referring to the ability to survive and get through not only 2020, because the real problem is going to be 2020, you're going to get through, you're certainly going to have a loss of revenues. Everyone is. And the expense side is not going to be dramatic. I don't think so. But of course, the revenue side is going to be affected much larger than the appropriation side. So you're going to get through 2020, but inevitably what's going to happen is that 2020 results of operations are not going to be what we're normally used to. The dollar values, the amount that we lapse into surplus is not going to be at the sustained level that we had in the previous years. But when you look at the big picture, and I look at your surplus and your reserve balances, you are one of the most healthiest communities that I represent. So I think sustainability is going to come into effect, and it's going to bear out in 2021, because that's going to be the difficult year going forward. We're dealing with the loss of revenues, dealing with the loss of surplus. But I think you are particularly set well to be able to sustain this without any major disruptions financially. And that's the key. And not every community is going to be able to do that. But I think, I think you are set for that position to be able to weather the storm, if you will. So if anybody has any other specific questions regarding that, otherwise I'm going to let Ralph run through the budget presentation, and then we'll stay on to answer any particular questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Okay,
Ralph, are you ready
Lorraine,
for me to pull it up?
yeah, you can get to page 2 of the presentation if you don't mind.
How's that?
That's good. If you could just go down just a hair more. Perfect. So the first slide here is a breakdown of your revenues that you're anticipating in your current 2020 budget versus what was in the 2019 adopted budget. So the first category of surplus anticipated, we're anticipating almost $2.7 million in this budget, which is a pretty sizable increase over the prior year of about $700,000 more than what we had in the 19 budget. Just as a note, our overall surplus is up about $150,000 at 12/31/19 from the prior year. The next category, municipal revenue, is up about $43,000. The items that are in this category include licenses, fees and permits, interest on investments, construction code fees, court fines and costs. Basically all your fees and permits and licenses are in here. The next category, state aid, is flat at $953,270, as it has been for probably the last 7 or 8 years. The next category, public and private revenue, of $585,422. This includes any state, federal, or county grants that you get. And it's offset with appropriations, so it's always offset and it doesn't have any tax impact. It is up pretty sizable from last year, about $231,000. It's mainly due to a new HUD grant and a new grant that we got from the New Jersey DEP in 2020. The next category, miscellaneous, of 182,719, is pretty flat from last year. The three items that are included in this category are cell tower rental fees, cable TV franchise fees, and fire prevention fees. Next, we have delinquent taxes of $850,000, which is the same as the prior year. That's any fees for taxes that weren't paid in the prior year. And then the last category, which is general taxation. This year, the tax amount being raised is $13,335,000, which in tax dollars is about $50,000 more than it was last year. But as we'll see later on, the tax rate is actually flat. The next slide just gives you kind of a pie breakdown of the revenues. And as you can see from the light blue area, general taxation makes up about 69% of our revenues. That's not uncommon for New Jersey municipalities of your size. It just shows that we're pretty heavily reliant on tax base. The next slide is the first cap that we have in the budget that we have to address. This is the tax levy cap. So each year you're allowed to go up by 2% your tax levy, with some exceptions. And also anything that you do not utilize gets banked and available for up to 3 years to be utilized in case of emergency and you needed to. The budget, as we saw on a prior slide this year, is using $13,335,000 of taxes. You actually could have gone all the way up to $15.2 million in taxes and still been within the state mandated cap. So you're right now about $1.9 million under the tax levy cap that you could have gone to, which just kind of shows the responsibility of the budget that you've got in front of you. The next slide goes through kind of a comparison of the spending in the various categories between 2020 and what we adopted in 2019. So the overall budget is up a little over $1 million to $19,441,110. The first category, general government, this includes items such as the mayor and council, administration, finance, the clerk, tax collection, legal, recreation, planning board. A lot of different categories go into this. It's a little over $2.8 million. It's pretty consistent with the prior year. The next category, insurance, which is $1,893,10, is actually down about $200,000 from the prior year. The reason is that there's a significant projected savings in our health insurance cost in 2020. So that was a good thing, and that's why we were able to lower that appropriation. Police services makes up about $3.7 million in our budget. That is up about 8% over the prior year. Fire and emergency services is $228,000, which is roughly $10,000 more than it was in the prior year. Police dispatch service is next at $455,000. Then we have public works of $2,081,121. That's actually comprised of three categories. That's the DPW itself, buildings and grounds, as well as vehicle maintenance services. You'll see that is up about $300,000, which seems sizable, but in 2020, your budget was actually a little bit of a change. We collapsed the park maintenance budget into the buildings and grounds budget. So that increase is a little high because of that reason. Next, we have solid waste and recycling of $1,448,000. We are up about $88,000 on our garbage and recycling contract. The next category is statutory and fixed charges of $1,829,871. There's really three items that make up that category mainly. That is the borough's contribution to the public employees retirement system, your contribution to the police and firemen's retirement system, and your contribution for Social Security. The next amount, public and private revenues, $585,422. As we mentioned on the revenue side, that's offset by the revenue, so there's no tax impact, and those were those two additional grants that mainly made that up. Next, we have debt service and capital improvements, $2,692,000. We are up $276,000. but it's actually kind of an increase in capital improvements of $550,000, where the borough has put significantly more money in capital improvement fund to fund ordinances. And then debt service actually went down $274,000 to get to the net increase of $276,000. And then the last category is the reserve for uncollected taxes of $1.7 million. That's a non-spending appropriation that you're required to have in your budget. And it's really for two reasons. One, because we know we're not going to collect 100% of our tax revenues in a given year. There's going to be some delinquents at the end of every year. And the second reason is that if there are any cancellations or tax appeals that are granted, the municipality has to take on 100% of that, because the school and the county get all of their tax levy that they raise regardless of any cancellations or appeals that may take place. The next slide is just kind of a pie chart breaking down in a different format the different expenditure categories that we just went over. The next slide is the second cap that's in your budget, and that's the appropriation cap. You're allowed to go up to 3.5% each year in your budget spending inside the cap when you do a COLA ordinance, which I believe may be on the agenda tonight, or maybe it was at the last meeting. And whatever you do not utilize of that cap gets banked for up to 2 years and is available to be used. So in your budget this year, your cap spending is $14.2 million, but that's about $1.1 million less than what you could have gone into your budget and still been within the appropriation cap. Just sort of lends itself again to what I mentioned before about the responsibility of the budget that was put forth to the council. The next slide gives you a breakdown of the tax rate, and the school and county. At the time this was prepared, we don't know their rate and what it's going to be, so we just assume it's going to go up 2%, but it may not be that way. But our municipal tax rate is flat at 94.94. So at this point, there's no increase in the municipal rate. The next slide just sort of gives you a breakdown, a visual breakdown of where your tax dollars go. And as you can see, only about 28 cents of every tax dollar paid in Hopatcong goes for municipal purposes, and 52 cents goes to the school, and about 20 cents goes to the county. So about 3/4 of every dollar that homeowners pay do not go to support municipal appropriations. And then the last slide is just showing that the average home, what the effect of this particular budget is on the average home. The average home in Hopatcong is assessed at about $214,000, and that individual would pay $2,014 of taxes this year, which is the same as last year. And even though on an earlier slide, the actual levy went up about $50,000, our assessed valuation also went up in 2020, which is why the effective increase is 0 to the average homeowner. Be happy to answer any questions that anybody at mayor, council, or the public may have.
This is where we can ask questions?
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple. So you said the tax levy doesn't change from last year.
The actual tax levy dollar amount did change, but the tax rate did not change.
Right. Okay. Thank you. How much this year of the surplus are we using? Do we know yet?
Yes. So the first slide that we had up there, the revenues, we're using $2,694,999 of our surplus is being utilized in this budget. And your overall surplus at year end was almost $6.3 million. So we used about 2.7 of the 6.3 available.
Oh, okay. So we had 6.3 at the end of 19, and we're going to be using 2 of that going forward in 2020.
2.7, correct.
I'm sorry, 2.7. Thank you. And do we know what that's being used for yet, or no?
Yeah, that's just one of the revenue sources in your budget. So it's not specifically identified for an expense. It's just one of your revenue sources that's going to, be spent towards the overall budget that is a little over $19.4 million. So it's
Got it.
just an item of revenue utilized for all the expenses the borough has.
Okay. And then do we have a plan to replenish the surplus?
Sure. I mean, the hope is that the current year operations will replenish the surplus, both whatever revenues we realize and whatever prior year budget we didn't utilize that lapses into surplus. But obviously, with the current economic times, there's no real way for us to predict exactly how we're going to end up at 12/31/20.
Okay.
Right, and I'll just add something to that. You know, if you look at the 10-year history, you know, we were down back in 2010 of only $1.3 million, and that surplus now climbed to 6.2. And I know that I've had conversations with the mayor and certain council members, and maybe council as a whole, where we all thought that, you know, we were certainly dangerously low at one point in time with our surplus, and now that surplus has risen to a number that the mayor and council has made a conscious effort that we want to start to reduce that down and bring that number down to a reasonable percentage of your total budget. So I think at one point we were again below where we really wanted to be, and now we're at a point where we know that the number is very healthy, but we're going to start to bring it down. You just don't want to bring it down all in one swoop. But you know, it turns out that was a God bless. In fact, that we were able to generate this surplus and have these reserve balances, because I truly believe when we get to 2021 and 2022, we're going to be aggressive on the utilization of surplus again. And then you should be able to sustain yourself at a reasonable level.
Got it. All right. Are we going to be incurring new debt in 2020?
Not that I know of. Lorraine, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, we're definitely going to have some debt authorized with our capital spending, but the amount that we authorize will be less than the amount that we're paying down this year. So at the end of the year, we will have an overall decrease in our debt.
Oh, okay, because that was going to be my next question. Are we increasing debt payments in an effort to pay down more debt? So that would, yeah, okay.
You know,
And
most of our debt is locked in and we cannot pay additionally on them, but we are aggressively paying our note. That's the option available to us.
Right, and I also think that, you know, big picture wise here, when you look at this particular budget, and certainly the one from last year, the amount that's being funded into the Capital Improvement Fund, which is a fund that the borough can utilize to pay improvements and projects with cash on hand, as opposed to some municipalities which just do the minimum amount, which is basically 5% of the authorization, and then they finance everything. We've actually made a conscious effort now to move away from financing everything, because you do that when you have no cash reserves, and we're in a situation that's not ideal. Now the cash reserves have increased. So now the idea is to try to move from the large cash reserves and move that in to start to go as a pay-as-you-go for perhaps maybe some of the non-major infrastructure. So when you're doing smaller projects or vehicles or what have you, you can start to get to the point where you're actually paying cash for those, and you leave financing for the major infrastructure programs.
Yeah, that was definitely an ongoing effort that the Finance Committee has put forth. In 2016, we were only funding $70,000 towards our capital improvements, and this year we're at 1.2 million. So we've made dramatic strides towards more of a pay-as-you-go capital funding for our finances.
Okay.
Right.
What is the plan for the reserve for, like, is there a plan for the reserve for the uncollected taxes? Because we're going to see an increase in that, correct? As we go through what we're going through right now, maybe not, I mean, I don't know about this year, but maybe next year, I'm guessing this year. So, you know, are we using more of those reserves and allocating them because of the pandemic?
Our actual reserve for uncollected taxes hasn't increased, but our in-house plan for that, knowing that our revenues are going to decrease, we are keeping our department heads on task of not spending any non-essential funding. So as we get through the end of the year, if we are going to have a shortfall or even an actual deficit, which I doubt, but if we do, then we'll have the ability to cancel unspent appropriations to make sure that we do not have a deficit.
Okay. And then my last question is when the budget passes, and I don't know if this is essential work or not essential work, but can we, can the work, because I know that can the work on the baseball fields and the paving start or not yet?
That's more of a council decision as to what you
Oh.
start. The capital funding will be available. We'll have capital ordinances to be introduced at our next regular council meeting. They take two readings. After that, you're ready to go. We have, as I said, 1.2 million in our budget right now for capital funding. So I know that the Finance Committee has talked about getting paving going, but you guys will have to decide what are the capital improvements you want to move forward with right away.
Got it. Thank you.
Jennifer, you will see some paving because we have grant monies. That was the Telcon resolution we put on last meeting. That has
Yeah.
been deemed essential by DOT and the FTA. So you'll see those projects going on, but that's grant money. That's
grant money. And then the county is paving.
The county's paving. Yep.
609.
Ave. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, okay. I just wanted to, all right. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Sure.
More questions?
Ron, you're muted.
Heather Fiore, Windsor Avenue. I just wanted to find out the amount that you allocate for those that don't pay on the tax. I think it was 1.7. Is it normal to have a 13% hold for taxation for those that you may not collect? Roughly 13%. I didn't write down the numbers, so I'm just going based on a broad number.
Sorry, you beeped in and out a couple of times. Were you asking for the reserve for uncollected taxes?
Yes. Is the reserve amount normally around 13%? Or is that increased at all given this particular?
That has not increased this year. It's been at 1.7 million since 2017. It's been that amount. We normally have, I think, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, around a 99% tax collection rate.
About 98, maybe a little bit less than 98%. It's actually based on a calculation. So what we do is we look at the actual collection rate and then we come up with what do we think we need, and the maximum that we can use on this calculation is the collection rate. We've always been typically about 1 to 1.5% less than we actually have as a collection rate. And what this does, it gives us the ability then, as Ralph had indicated, to make those payments to the school, to the county, and then deal with the non-payment issues. And again, you know, you may think that this is somewhat high, and it's right in line with most other municipalities. But this particular year may serve again as a weather storm where we say, okay, we have this 1% differential between the collection rate and succeeding year calculation difference. But in fact, this could be a year where that 1% doesn't materialize, and we're going to be using that 1.7 million. What isn't used, I will say, drops into surplus as part of the generation process.
How much do we usually use of that 1.7?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, it's based upon the collections, usually around 1% that we don't use, and it goes back through the appropriation side and back into surplus. So it's a regeneration tool again.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? Entertain a motion to bring it back.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're back.
Mayor, now we need a motion and a second to approve the budget.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoppercamp,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a budget, and I think it's a pretty good one. And again, there's no tax increase to the public, which is, in these times, I think, significant.
Mike,
Thank you.
if I could just, I want to personally thank the Finance Committee. Lorraine, you're the best in the world. Ralph, thank you for your expertise. Council, this is going to be hard times, so I just want you to know we're circling the wagons, and I just appreciate everybody's support in this. This is a long effort.
Yeah.
It's a very long effort, and I'd like to thank Ron and Lorraine and Brad Hofferkamp for really putting in time, and Mike, obviously. It was a long effort, and I think we have a good budget here, and I think all of us are realizing coming in the next few months there's going to be some belt tightening and some surprises, hopefully not bad ones, but we got to be prepared, and that's the way we're going to look at it, and we got to dance with the music that's playing. So that's it.
And thanks to you, Rich. You should throw yourself in the mix as well.
Yeah. So
Well said, Rich.
we're at the point now where I got a couple of things that I can talk about. I won't bore you too much today, but a couple of things. I think the individual that donated our freezer to the community center, his name is Jim Moore, and I want to personally and publicly thank him. When he found out what we were doing, he just brought a check, and we got the freezer, and I think it's great that there was no complications there. It was fast and simple, and I appreciate his generosity, which goes to show what I always say about our town. Our people are so generous and so caring. It's a very small, tiny majority that's not, but overall, when our community does come together, and I appreciate that, and it just makes me love our town even more. Couple of things. The brush pickup that we're doing is going great. The guys are doing a good job. Hopefully, the public appreciates the hard work of our DPW. We're going to work hard to get the recycling center back open and get our arms around it. I think we ordered stickers for people to show that they're residents. That process will be put in place and should make things a lot easier. We've started our solar project, and I'm thrilled about that. They were up there, the engineers were laying out the flag, the layout for the collectors. They spent a couple of days up there. I don't know if they'll finish tomorrow or not, but that's a major step forward. And hopefully before the end of the month, we'll start seeing some solar panels installed up there. And I can't tell you what a job this has been for the past 3 or 4 years, but now it's going to start materializing. And aside from being environmentally sound, it's going to bring some added income to the borough. Stupid. So the aeration at Crescent Cove, we had a nice conversation with the DEP. They really want us to get that going. We will. There's some contractual stuff that we have to get done, and it's a little complicated in that the grant that we got was really the grant that we have to, the borough has a contract with the DEP to do this job, and then the borough has a contract with a vendor to do the work. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on. We're getting through that pretty good. But again, we have to dot our I's and cross our T's. But things are looking good. I sincerely hope we can open our borough to the public, even at a limited basis, and let people know that, in fact, we are there to serve them. And we are there to make sure that we fill their essential needs. And so I view what we do as a governing body as essential to our people. And that being said, we're going to try to manage that with our crew and our administration as best we can. So I hope everyone stays healthy. And if there's any question whatsoever, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Opposed? Thank you.
All right, have a good day,
Bye-bye,
guys.
everybody. Yep.
Thanks,
Good day.
everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Be well.
I just got to figure out how to